Welcome to Teaching Truth. Written and directed by Mel Gibson, the historical drama film Braveheart tells the story of William Wallace, the 13th century Scottish warrior who led the Scots with conviction and fiery passion against King Edward I of England. If you've seen the film, you'll recall the famous last words of Wallace as he's about to face a horrific execution. And with all the energy that he can muster as he looks death in the face, he shouts those immortal words, freedom. That one word that defined his aim in life as in death. Last words and the lasting impact they leave are interesting, revealing much about the one who is to die. And the same is no less true of Jacob as he utters, as it were, his last words, as he prepares to die, as he defines what the legacies will be for each of his 12 sons. And today we want to think about the legacy that defined the following sons that he had. Asher. Asher was a faithful servant. The name Asher means happy, and they were given very fertile soil on the northern shores of the promised land. God gave them so much, and they used it to produce much. In other words, they were faithful with what God had given to them. They produced food fit for kings. The challenge to us today is, if God has given you much, be faithful with it. Use it for God's good. Use it to define a good and godly legacy. What about Naphtali? Beautiful offspring, a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. What a beautiful and lovely picture. The legacy of Naphtali was to yield beautiful offspring. Now, why was that significant? Well, 11 of the 12 disciples in Jesus' time, except Judas Iscariot, came from where? The land of Naphtali in the Galilee. A fulfillment, as it were, of that beautiful offspring that was prophesied. My prayer for the next generation, for Lewis and for those who in God's time and in God's providence would follow, that would be that they would yield beautiful offspring, those who would commit themselves to the Lord and would go on to serve the Lord. Is that a legacy that we can write into our families? What about Joseph? Well, Joseph got a double blessing. Joseph, as we've already discovered in our reflections over recent weeks, did what was right before God, regardless of his circumstances. He chose to trust in God, a fruitful bough. And we read much of what happened to him in verses 23 and 26. Joseph chose to do what was right before God. What a wonderful legacy to have, that you chose to do what was right before God, that you honored God. God, says the Bible, is no man's debtor. And finally, Jacob's last son number 12, Benjamin, always fighting, a ravenous wolf, devouring his enemies in the morning and dividing his plunder in the evening. Benjamin became a tribe of fighters. And if you read Judges 20 and 21, there are incredible battles between Benjamin and the other tribes of Israel. They fought their own and they did great damage to their fellow tribes of Israel. So what do we learn from these legacies? 12 sons, 12 tribes, 12 legacies. But really only one of two types of legacies, as we've seen. Good legacies and not so good, can I even say evil legacies. Positive legacies and negative legacies. And right now, even today, you and I, we are writing our legacy. Our legacy to be recorded in the annals of history. What will our legacy be? Reuben's legacy was one of lust. Simeon's legacy was one of anger. Levi's legacy was one of violence. Judah's legacy was one of leadership. Zebulun's legacy was one of being productive. Issachar's legacy was one of being strong. Dan's legacy was of a serpent, of a viper. Gad's legacy was one of being on the wrong side. Asher's legacy was one of faithfulness. Naphtali's legacy was one of a beautiful offspring. Joseph's legacy was one of a double blessing. Benjamin's legacy was one who was always fighting. Legacies which were prophesied by Jacob as he lay dying. Genesis 49 verse 33. When Jacob had finished saying these things to his sons, he drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and joined his ancestors in death. And so Jacob's legacy and the legacies of his 12 sons have been written, forever recorded in history. And there's a day coming when your legacy will be finished and recorded. What legacy am I writing? What legacy are you writing? My dad, my beloved father, left a tremendous legacy. Not just to many people generally, but specifically to Lewis and to I, the son, and to the grandson. Just as my father left a legacy to the next generation, what is the legacy that you will leave to the next generation? What will your legacy be defined as? Only you can answer that question.